Sound awakens something deep within. Welcome to this podcast, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to the song of your soul. In this episode, I am joined by Anthony Profeta, who has been named the #1 sound therapist in the United States for 2025 by the Evergreen Awards. Known as the Mozart of Sound Meditation, Anthony blends years of global training with teachers like Dalai Lama and Jack Kornfield, with his medical background to bridge science and spirit. From cancer patients in top hospitals to seekers at his sound meditations, Anthony's work is transforming lives. Hi, Anthony. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Hi, Lakshmi. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to talk to you, and I'm really excited to be on your podcast. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you. So, your journey has started as a medical student, right? So, tell me how it unfolded and it brought you to sound.
Well, yeah, that has been an interesting journey. There's a lot of people in like the spiritual communities and spiritual worlds that say, you got to think about and really try to manifest what you want in life. Well, I wasn't thinking that one day I would be, working with singing bowls and doing sound-based therapy. I was not manifesting that in like my vision boards or anything like that. So it was a very interesting turn in my career. I did start in medicine. How I thought I would be serving people in this world was as a doctor. So I was pre-med and ended up going to a New York City medical school to go work on that path. But I was in the meditation path, or I should say I was on the meditation path prior to the entrance of medical school. So I was doing some work with meditation, but it was only for my own spiritual growth. It wasn't with the intention to maybe one day share these practices with others or go out and teach other people how to meditate. That wasn't on my radar. I thought I would be, working in hospitals or maybe in private practice doing Western medicine work. But as I was going through school, multiple things sort of happened. And one of the primary challenges that I was facing was the fact that now, when I was in school, research used to say less. It used to say 80%. But in 2021, a more modern study has been published, and the research is showing from like the American Medical Association, the Institute of Health, the National Institute of Health, the World Health Organization, that now 90% of all doctor and hospital visits worldwide are stress related. So it's actually been increasing
Right.
since I was going to become a doctor. And we're talking, like 18, 20 years ago now. So
Right.
that was not a good sign that it's actually getting worse. And so I kept saying, well, that's in some ways because in the West here, we're really symptom focused. We don't really help people and patients get to that underlying root cause. Now, I'm not against Western medicine. I believe everything has its purpose. I believe we have the best emergency medicine and trauma physicians in the world in our country here in the United States where I'm living. But in regard to like the everyday, day-to-day healthcare, I do believe that we need a little bit of an overhaul with that. And something I love about the East, because I did eventually go on and went to study in India, was living as a monk for a while in some monasteries of both India and Nepal, and even Italy for a bit. But something that I love about Eastern medicine is they are very root cause oriented. They try to get down to, they understand that there are symptoms that arise in the physical body, but in many of their cases, it's the mind that is the most important. You want to get to that underlying root cause that comes from the mind. And, stress is, does have a lot to do with our mindset and our mind state and mental state and all of that. So I didn't want to just be one of these doctors that was symptom focused. I didn't just want to deal with the superficial symptoms. Of course, you want to help a patient alleviate the symptoms though, because you want them to move through life with more peace, ease, and balance. But I didn't want to leave it there. I really want to help my patients get to the underlying root cause. And since so much illness and disease was due to stress, I said I'm going to start focusing more heavily on stress management, relaxation responses, mindfulness, meditation. And that's actually when I decided to go over to India and Nepal and go live for a while, studying as many different methods as I could find. And it was through the Tibetan lineage that I really got a deep understanding of sound healing and sound therapy with the with the metal Himalayan singing bowls. You might be familiar with these. So there was a couple of monks. I was living in a monastery that was associated with the Dalai Lama. So it was through the Tibetan lineage that I really became in contact with that more deeply. When I was studying meditation, I did stay a couple times at a monastery in New York for some retreats and stuff. And it was a Zen monastery. So the Japanese monastery also had these singing bowls that they would strike to, call us into the meditation hall and then strike it again in order for us to start the meditation. So I had interactions with singing
Gotcha.
bowls, but I never really got deep into studying it except through the Tibetan lineage and then with some friends here in the United States. So it was on that journey of really shifting and going more holistic and trying to find ways that people could alleviate their stress that I really got deep into the sound, because once I started really working with that, I saw the effect it had on me. And I mean, even if you're not familiar with the singing bowls, people know that music and sounds and frequencies and vibrations have an effect on them. I mean, we can be in a sort of, off state or feeling a little down, and we put on a certain song and it totally changes the way we feel about life.
Definitely.
And so, we know that sound does have an effect on the emotions and the mental body in that way.
The perfect time is here to experience my new sound meditation, a vibrant fusion of singing bowls and sacred chanting designed to uplift your spirit and soothe your mind. Download it now and let the resonance work its magic within you.
And once I came back to the United States and really started incorporating sound-based therapy and sound meditations into my offerings, I got a lot of feedback on the benefit that people were having from those experiences. So I've been working with sound for about 12 years now, and that's really how I sort of fell into it and really got deep into it, was by deep talks with some Tibetan monks and a couple of nuns as well.
That's a terrific journey. Thank you for sharing. And it's profound because you were in the medical field and you kind of said, I don't want to pursue this. And then you went to seek and
Yes.
learn more about sound. That's very intriguing.
Some people thought I lost my mind when I was leaving traditional medicine. Like, what is he doing? He's giving it up everything. That's a secure job. That's a good paycheck. And some people thought what I was doing was totally crazy. But the journey that I'm on and seeing how it's unfolded for me is just confirmation for me that, I am on the right path, because things took off. And, I God has blessed me in so many ways that, I couldn't even see happening. So,
That's beautiful. Yeah, I was having a conversation with Dr. Nisha Manik. She's an integrative medicine dermatologist, and she was talking about how our medicine is solely based on the physical aspect,
yes.
but it's not taking under control the emotional and the mental aspect. But when
Yes.
they're incorporated, that's when we can see these changes happening within the patients. Because right now it's more of chemistry, but we also need to take that to the next level and address the emotional and mental states.
Absolutely. I firmly believe that we're more than just a physical body. I believe we're body, mind, and soul. So I believe we're like a three-part. Some Eastern traditions say we even have more than that. We have the etheric body and the astral body and all of those sort of things. But uh, you know, I believe that we can't neglect any of those aspects of ourselves. And if we just rely on the physical, we're forgetting about the mental component. We're forgetting about the spiritual component. And I believe that all of those need to be taken into balance and consideration when we are talking about a holistic health program. Otherwise we're out of balance in certain areas.
Right. And so where you're living or the hospitals or the medical community, healthcare communities, are they open to incorporating these wellness programs into their
They they have started recently, to be honest with you. There was a hospital that I'm working in a couple of hospitals here. I'm based in Florida in the United States. And so I'm working in a couple of hospitals here now doing sound-based therapy as an integrative wellness medicine provider. And I'm contracted by them to do work, not only like small groups, but also some private sessions, one-on-one type of work with some patients dealing with fibromyalgia, chronic pain, because in those instances, if we can bombard the body with sound vibrations, the nerve receptors begin to pick up the vibrations of the sound, and they sort of don't have room to pick up the signals of the pain. So we can begin to help people move through a little bit of the pain and discomfort that they're feeling with certain illnesses. And some hospitals are becoming open to that here. I do think it's more so because of the fact that they realize that a lot of people are looking outside of traditional medicine
Right.
for ways to bring wellness, and they're realizing that more people are going to these sort of integrative alternative practices. So now the hospitals are saying, well, maybe we should try to bring some of this stuff in to keep people in. But I also know that in one or two of the hospitals that I am working at, I don't think these programs would be in place if they weren't backed by a donor. So a donor is funding these programs, and I think if it was up to the hospital, because of their budgets and the money that they have, they wouldn't be as open to it if it wasn't donor backed. So I'm very grateful for the donors that are bringing these things or trying to bring them into Western medicine facilities. It's slowly happening, even across the country. I do know that at Duke Health, they're doing sound baths and sound based therapy. Up in Massachusetts, some of their hospitals are, many out in California. Even the University of Texas, their oncology department is doing sound therapy. So it's slowly happening, especially with sound, at least, that more and more are open to bringing these sort of practices into their facilities.
Yeah, I think that's what we need more and more of because, as you said, people are looking for something more than just the physical aspect. They're looking for that emotional support, they're looking for that stress relief, and then the calmness and the relaxation that comes about to just sink into these practices. Just for 20 minutes to 30 minutes, I think would be terrific for anybody to carry on for at least 2 to 3 days, I would say.
Yes.
Um, but again, it's individual basis.
It is there, but luckily now that singing bowls and sound baths and these types of meditations have become quite popular. There is some research that's being done on them now. In fact, there's over about 160 studies on singing bowls now. That's not a lot, but it's a very good start at least.
Right.
And there is a lot of evidence on some of the benefits that these things have for people. You're talking about relaxation and calm. Well, they begin to move us out of the sympathetic part of our nervous system. Our autonomic nervous system has two parts. The sympathetic, if any of the listeners and viewers are not familiar with that, the S, sympathetic, is your stress, fight or flight part of the nervous system. And then the other one is your parasympathetic, which is your rest, digest, relax, restore. And sound therapy and sound meditations and singing bowls, the studies have shown that people are moving into that parasympathetic nervous system easier, quicker. They're getting more entrained into the more relaxed, calmer meditative states of alpha and theta brainwave activity. And you mentioned actually the perfect amount of time. There was one study that shows that the best benefit for sound based therapy are sessions between about 22 minutes to a maximum of about 45, no more than 45, because then people begin to get restless and antsy and they're like, oh, how much longer is this going to take?
Yes.
What's going on? If they're laying on like a mat on a yoga floor or something like that, they begin to get uncomfortable. So they begin to like fidget and become a little bit restless. So after 45 minutes, the positive aspects do begin to change and they actually don't stay positive anymore.
That's a great point to note. Yeah, definitely see that because we don't want to keep repeating the same thing. We want to just hit that sweet spot and be done. Just like when you work out, right? You don't want to be on the treadmill for like an hour. I think 20 minutes to 30 minutes is perfect. So I think the same is true with sound or
Absolutely.
any kind of relaxation technique.
Yes.
So that way they can carry that within and just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people carry the benefits of sound therapy and sound baths much longer even after the experience. So sometimes if I'm
Yes.
doing them at like after work at 6 o'clock at night, I'll get an email the next day from people who said, it was the best sleep I've ever had. I've never felt this relaxed. And they didn't go to bed until like 5 hours later. So it has a carryover effect. And it's nice to hear that from people.
Yeah, definitely. Some of my clients are reporting the same with my sound sessions. Like they report that they're able to sleep better and they're able to do these things that they have not done for so many years.
Yeah,
So they're become more proactive and they look for ways and then they find this time to just be creative.
wonderful.
Yeah. I think it's just that the time would be used very efficiently if they were exposed to something like this.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it's slowly happening more and more that people are becoming aware of these things, but there are still a lot of people that don't know there's options out there for them to help them with relaxation and different methods of ways to really bring calmness to the body and peace to the mind. And so I'm very grateful for you who are, open to talking about these things on your podcast, because then it does bring the awareness to more people. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Anthony, for being here, for trusting this process and just showing up, because it's hard to get a yes. But once you do, it's kind of like, it's an open conversation. You would
Yes.
speak your heart out, you talk about your experiences, your clients' experiences. And I think that creates a ripple effect in more and more people coming to know about these and exploring these and trying to find firsthand what it feels like. So that's the beauty of all of these practices. I know they may not sound that enticing in the beginning, but it won't be until they actually try, they would know the actual benefit of it. And I've had one guest on my podcast, and he was telling about how even if we don't feel it at that moment, you would have that within you. And just at that right moment, it would just unfold. It's like a mini time capsule thing. So it may not happen instantly, but these vibrations, these ripple effects in your body, they just speak volumes. They do make things happen behind the scenes.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing also about, like meditation. We very often don't see the benefits. Like and compared to like maybe people who do yoga. If you start yoga in the beginning, you might go to your first class and you notice you can't really bend over and touch your toes. But then you
Right.
keep up with it, and by the end of a couple of weeks, wow, you notice that, oh my God, I'm getting more flexible, I can touch my toes. When we're talking about sound therapy and we're talking about meditation, it's more of an inner transformation that's happening, and sometimes we don't recognize the benefits right away. But like you said, there is a blossoming, there's an unfolding, there's a carrying of these things that then there becomes a transformation. And sometimes other people begin to see it in you, maybe even before you do yourself. But
That's
but yeah, that is very true in what you're saying.
Yeah. And what was like one of the most profound experiences you've had before you got into sound fully?
Um, a per a personal experience that happened
Yes.
for me in my life. There's been many throughout the journey, but the most profound experience I had was actually coming into a direct experience or an awareness of something that was greater than myself. A part of reality that, to be honest with you, I can't even really put into words. It has to be felt in order to really be experienced, because if I just try to explain it, either I can cause somebody else to not have that experience because they're thinking it's going to be like my experience, or by trying to put it into words, I begin to put it into a box, and it's not exactly
Right.
that. But I will go. I'll go on to say that my journey with sound and meditation has caused me to have a deeper belief and faith in something that I always knew was there, but now have a real direct awareness that is there.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people say that about experiencing something higher than you. It's hard to put into words,
Yeah.
definitely.
Everybody, I really hope everybody can experience it though, because
Yeah.
it's very beautiful, very profound. And the thing about it is too is I did sort of, I guess because of my scientific background, I sort of went on like a scientific experiment to really try to seek and discover this, because when I was in college, I had a wonderful comparative religions course where it was Yeah, one week we were discussing mystical texts of like all the different traditions. It was, the Hindu faith and the Buddhist faith and the Christian mystics and all the Sufis of Islam. And they were all saying that there is something greater than us. There's a part of reality that we can experience in this life. We don't have to wait to die to experience it. And when they've all were describing it, whether it was Kabir or Rumi or Saint Teresa of Avila, they were all describing in the same way that it was an unconditionally loving, blissful, beautiful uh, energy or emotion or whatever that they were tapping into, a source, a presence. And when I'm reading all these texts, I was like, oh, I'd love to, I'd die to experience that. And so I really said, all right, if all of these traditions are saying that it's possible, and all of these different paths, someone has found it. I said, I really want to also try to be able to experience that. And the thing about it is they've all said the way to experience it isn't outside, it's inside. Whether they called it meditation, whether they called it contemplation, or whether they called it anything else, it was always turning the senses away from the outer world and moving into the inner world that you can really come to know that.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Yes, definitely. I agree. It's everything is within. Like they say, source is outside, up there, or wherever,
Yeah.
but it's within. And even heaven and hell is
Within.
also within, because you can create that reality just by being
Yes.
in that frequency.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, and can you share like probably an experience with your sound bowls from one of your clients?
I could, yes. There's actually been a couple. There have been a couple of instances where I was able to help people with like physical medical issues and conditions, such as tinnitus or tinnitus, the ringing in their ears. Now, with people like that, I do recommend they often go to like a private session because it's easier to communicate and talk with the facilitator and the practitioner and the patient. But we were able to find with one of the sing bowls or a tuning fork a frequency or vibration that actually canceled out the ringing in their ears. So they were able to go through the session by me playing that sound, playing that frequency, because sound waves can either come together and increase something, so a ringing could get worse, or it could have like no effect, a neutral effect, or it could have the dampening effect where they come together and one frequency will cancel out the other. And so we were able to find for a couple of patients a frequency that was the same frequency as their one needed to cancel out the frequency that the ringing in their ears was. And so they were then able to go buy a tuning fork and then they could use it at home to help alleviate the ringing that they before were having, they said, constantly throughout the day, 24 hours, as long as they were up, they constantly heard the ringing. But then by finding that frequency, they were able to lessen that. I've had many patients who have described a benefit with their uh, anxiety, with their depression, helping to alleviate those sort of things. And then there was also, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of patients who were dealing with chronic pain, who we were able to help alleviate and help them move through some of those things by actually taking some of the bowls and actually placing them on parts of the body. So these bowls can be played on the body or around the body. And so there were a couple of people who were dealing with chronic back pain, and but just by playing that on their body, sort of like a sound massage, you could say,
Right.
it was able to help them to sort of like alleviate the tension in the muscles, and they got through a session, and even a little bit afterwards with the relief of the pain. They would come back for repeated sessions, but they were able to get some relief from it for a period of time, which is good to see.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing how much sound can be so healing.
Absolutely. And people don't realize that in medicine, we have used sound waves for really decades to heal, cure, and correct illness and disease. So we have devices in hospitals that are called ultrasound machines. And an ultrasound machine is nothing more. Typically, it's a probe with a wire attached to the computer, but they have ultrasound pads and many other things as well that they can use. But typically, it's a probe that they will put over someone's body. And there are illnesses such as gallstones or kidney stones, and one way a doctor will try to alleviate the patient of that illness sometimes is they take the ultrasound machine, and if it's in the gallbladder, they just put the ultrasound machine over the gallbladder and begin to bombard that area. because sound waves will move through your body. And so as these energies move through the body and hit the stone, if they find the right frequency, it actually, the vibration of the sound wave that's hitting the stone shakes it apart and crumbles. And then the residue, the sand, can now move through the gall ducts or the kidney ducts without any surgical intervention at all. That's all done by moving sound waves through a body to help bring wellness and to help cure the illness that the person is dealing with. Sound has the ability to do that. So sound is a pretty impressive thing.
I know, I agree. I totally agree. And I believe your sound bowls are doing similar thing.
Correct. Yes. So what happens is the same. So in terms of science, I because of my background with medicine and spirituality, I try to support or bridge both worlds because I do believe they support each other.
Right.
And in the scientific world, they say that everything is energy. The entire world is energy. According to science, there's nothing but energy. Energy was creating all the matter, the rocks, the trees, the sun, the moon, the stars, and our physical flesh and blood body. Everything that we call matter, according to science, is actually an energetic vibration. So it's some energy that's now condensing into these forms. And Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, those are all Nobel Prize winning quantum physicists and scientists. They've all agreed that this universe is nothing but energy. In fact, Albert Einstein said the denser or the harder a piece of matter is, it's just the slower its vibrational rate is. And so energy has the ability to affect energy in many positive ways. And so I just described how energy can move through the body and break up a little piece of matter like a gallstone, which according to science, from a scientific level, they'd say that that little stone, that little piece of matter is actually a stuck energy because all matter is energy. So there's an energy moving through your body, pushing out, breaking up that stuck stagnant energy that you have held there and moving it through the body. Well, with the singing bowls, it's believed to do the same thing, but they talk about it more from an energetic level, in the sense that they say the sound waves of the singing bowls, as you're in a sound bath or at a private session, they're sound waves, they will move through your body. Sound waves will move through your body. And as they do, in spiritual traditions, they believe that when they go through, they can begin to break up and push out stuck emotions or energies that you have held in your nadis or your energetic channels or your energy centers. And so bringing all of those things back into alignment and balance. So if you have like a center of the body that's out of tune. They say the heart center can get out of tune by emotions being held there, like grief. So if like you're grieving, they would say your heart center might be out of balance. So if you're holding grief in your heart, yes, it's a process to release it, but sometimes the sound waves moving through can help to push out that stuck stagnant energy, bring those centers back into alignment, balance, bring the overall auric field back into alignment by bringing reattunement and realignment to the energetic body and push out those stuck stagnant energies that you have in the body. So it's the same way as the gallstone, just talking about it more from a spiritual, energetic level.
That's beautifully said. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, it does make sense how science and spirituality just go hand in hand. And it's like all of these are very subtly doing pretty much the same thing,
Yes.
but probably at a deeper level with sound, as
Yes.
you said, like in the example of the ultrasound machine, and same thing with the sound bowls.
Yes, and another study I could point you to is a Canadian university actually did a study where they took, I think it was 34 people who had never meditated before. And the first thing they did was they brought them to a mindful breath awareness class, and they monitored their brain waves as they guided them through the entire breath awareness practice of just observe your breath, watch the breath, and then what they discovered was, on average, the brainwaves of the group shifted out of the beta, which is like your conscious, analytical, everyday thinking mind, and
Right.
it moved it into the more meditative states of alpha and theta, on average in about 22 minutes. That's again why many people and meditation teachers will tell you you should meditate for about 20 to 30 minutes a day. It just typically takes about 20 minutes for people's brains and body to begin to settle. But when they took the same people a week later to a sound bath, and the only thing that changed was having them focus on the sounds of bowls, and they make for some people, a
Mhm.
very pleasant sound. And what they discovered was the brain waves of the group shifted out of the beta and into the more meditative states on average in just 12 minutes, nearly half the amount of time. So the
Yeah.
evidence was showing that they were getting into a relaxed parasympathetic um, alpha theta state quicker and actually staying there longer. And that's why I believe many people, like I've been doing, like I said, sound bath meditations and things for over a decade now, going on 12 years. And a lot of people will turn up for a sound bath. I'll have full rooms or sold out classes and there's no space left. But if it's like, come and sit in silence with Anthony for an hour, there's less people showing up to that. Now, I do think sound is profound. I mean,
Yep.
silence is profound.
Yep.
I do think that silence is not very silent, that
Yeah.
there's a lot of wisdom in the silence. But a lot of people are resonating with the singing bowl types of meditation a lot more. A lot more people are coming to those sort of things. And I think it's because they can really feel the difference. Yep, feel the shift into relaxation. And I think that study by the Canadian University, which shows they are getting into a relaxed state quicker and maybe even staying there a little bit longer, really says a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it totally makes sense because as you start with sound and slowly guide them into meditation, they can
Yes.
stay in that silence, and that silence feels beautiful. But if you ask them to just get into silence, it's hard because it's hard to tell your mind to calm down when there's a lot going on.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and to come tuned to you, just get back to your breath. I think sound helps.
Yes. I
Yeah,
agree. In
yeah.
fact, when I shared with you a moment ago about I had an interaction with sound bowls and singing bowls at the Zen monastery in New York, when they would strike the gong, not a gong, but they strike the bowl, it would sound literally like a gong because it was a
Huh?
very large singing bowl. But when we were sitting on the cushion, they'd strike it to start the meditation. And I always found it very, very helpful to follow the sound, listen to the sound until it would fade out and let it sort of carry me into my inner silence. And I found that a very helpful way to enter my meditation state was by listening to the sing bowl as it just faded out and get help me to get my mind a little bit quieter.
100%. I agree with that. Yeah, it just definitely is a very great tool to tune into your inner self.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about the singing bowls. Like, what is the difference between these metal bowls and the crystal bowls that we see outside?
Sure. That's a very good question and a great question, to be honest with you. Now, the metal bowls that I've been showing and picking up a couple of times, they are more ancient, of course, than the crystal singing bowls. These supposedly go back thousands of years to like when people were making bells in Asia. So, they found bells in China that I think are like 5,000 years old. And so people have been working with metals, for a long period of time, not just to make weapons. They were using metals to make other things as well.
Right.
And so these are considered a lot more ancient. The crystal bowls are a bit of a more new age sort of thing. They started being created in the late 70s, early 80s. And the big difference between them is if I was to strike a crystal bowl, the bowl itself is 99.99999% quartz crystal. They take quartz, they pulverize it into a powder, they put it into a mold to get the size bowl and shape that they want. They put it in an oven for at 4,000 degrees to get all the quartz to fuse together again. Out comes the bowl, and then you could play it. So when you strike that, if I was to take like an instrument tuning app, like a guitar tuner app, to
Right.
the crystal bowl, the needle would go to only like one note. So if it's a G bowl, the the needle on the tuner will go to G and it will not move from G no matter how I strike it, no matter how I play it. It will always be that note because in the bowl itself, it's all crystal, is vibrating the same. Now, if you
Okay.
are to get a handmade, and you can see that this one's sort of hand hammered bowl, some of them are just brass. Most machine-made ones are just brass, but they're also a mixture of metals. It's not just one metal. Usually it's tin and copper, tin and zinc or something like that. But there's also what are known as healing quality bowls that are believed to be made with bell metal. They say typically are five metal bowls, and that's tin, copper, lead, zinc, and nickel. And they're believed in Eastern traditions to be the five metals that correlate to the five elements. So they bring a greater balance to a body because when I strike this bowl, What's actually happening, if this is just brass or if it's a 5 metal bowl, molecularly, it doesn't all vibrate the same because there's different components to it. So the tin will vibrate a little bit different than the copper, which will vibrate a little bit different than the nickel or the zinc that might be in there. And so what happens with the metal bowls is you get what are known as all these overtones. If you take the tuning app to the bowl when this bowl is played, the needle will start jumping all over the place. It will go, oh, it's an E. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's a B. It's a G. And so, because all those metals are in there, it's giving off different tones. And you can even get different sounds out of it depending on how you strike it or rub it and stroke it. And you can get all these different notes and frequencies and sounds and melodies that can come out of a metal bowl. So in the East, they say that these are definitely way more healing for that aspect because it's like it's dishing out more medicine, more frequencies, more vibrations. In fact, also, if you go over to the East, the sound healers in like Tibet and India and Nepal, they typically only use these for multiple reasons. They're more durable. So if I dropped this by accident, I can pick it up and probably still play it again. It's not going to break. But if I drop the crystal bowl, it's going to shatter. So and also what I can get out of this bowl, whether it has, 2 metals or 5 metals, so it has all these different notes, I would need multiple crystal bowls to get the same thing out of. And
Got it.
so they do believe that these can be a lot more healing. Also, the metal balls are easier to place on people's body. They have more of a flat bottom, where the crystal bowls have a more rounded bottom and they're much larger. So if you put a crystal bowl on the floor, it's just going to rock because the bottom is round, where these are flat. And so it's better to lay on people's body to really get the sound vibration deep into their muscles and tissue. So there is a very big difference between the two bowls from that aspect. But the biggest difference is the metal bowls will put out more frequencies, more
Frequencies.
vibrations, more tones than the crystal bowl will.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And do you use just one bowl or do you use multiple bowls?
No, I use multiple bowls typically. When I'm doing a sound bath, a meditation, I have a whole setup around me of both crystal and the metal bowls. I intermix both of them. And I probably have like 9 crystal bowls that are standard and maybe like 10 metal bowls in between that I'm playing different you know, striking and melodies. I hesitate to use like melodies or anything like that because I'm not playing songs. I was trained by the Tibetan monks and nuns to play the bowls intuitively, so I'm playing based off of intuition. In fact, you don't want to play songs at a sound bath because that can bring up memories and thoughts and things in people's minds. So it's actually just sending out frequencies and tones with the bowls. So in my typical sound bath, I have a lot of bowls that I do come with, and it's both the crystal and the metal. And then when I'm doing private sessions, it's less bowls, but the bowls that I choose are determined by what the person is looking to get out of their experience. Is it for pain? Is it for an overall balancing? Is it for something that's going on in their lower back or a problem that's going on in their heart? There's all different reasons of why I choose the bowls that I'm working with for the private one-on-one sessions.
That makes total sense. And yes, I think even for the frequencies, when you place it on the body parts of people in the back or something, metal bowls would do more. They
Yeah,
hold more, right?
absolutely. I love that you got that handheld bowl
Yeah,
there.
I
Yeah.
just have this one, this metal bowl, and I think it's a heart.
Yes.
I think it says F,
Okay.
so is that the heart chakra?
If you're following the standard 7 chakra system and most sound healing communities, they will say yes, that the F note correlates with the heart chakra, right?
So this is my only metal bowl I have.
Okay, but that's good. At least you got one, and since it's metal, it will send out more overtones and everything. So that's wonderful. And also for people that are really looking into this, you can also send sound vibrations into a body and use them around a body by simple things such as tuning forks.
Okay.
Tuning forks also are a great way to bring sound therapy into an experience. I know that there's a lot of spa people here in Florida and estheticians that are using tuning forks around their patients when they're getting things done.
Makes sense. I think one of the authors, Eileen McCusick, she has the biofield tuning. I think she
Oh,
uses
yes.
tuning forks.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah. So that's where I learned about the tuning forks.
Okay.
And I think some people do incorporate crystals at the base of the tuning fork. So it
They
kind of
do.
radiates that energy.
Yes, no, that you're exactly right with that. So the end of the tuning fork at the stem, they either have a little like acupressure cap that they put on that's filled with like amethyst, or they have a cap that actually has the amethyst crystal on it, or some other crystal. It could be anything, quartz, or it could be lapis or whatever. But yeah, then the vibration then causes, they say, the gemstone energy to sort of like awaken, and they're sending more of that energy into the body and into the environment as well.
Makes sense. So they probably put it at the body spot and then infuse that with the frequency of the sound and also with the crystal's energy or whatever you call it.
Yes.
Makes sense. So all of this sounds very intriguing, the sound bowls and all of this. How do you intuitively play these bowls?
So when I'm doing a sound bath, if you were to watch me, and you can see me play sound baths on YouTube and stuff like that. I have a couple of videos there of me playing, and I think there's even some recordings of people who have videoed some of my events. But if you were to watch me, my eyes typically are about 60, 70% of the time closed, because I was taught to sort of tune in and focus on the sounds of the singing bowls, because I know when a bowl is struck, like how long that sound should be resonating for. And I was taught by one of my teachers that if some of these sounds seem like they're getting absorbed or dampening, he would say that that's a sound that the group or the environment is taking more in of. It's like they need that, so it's getting taken in by the bodies quicker. That's why it's not resonating as much. And so I'd be taught to then add that sound until I heard it get to the point where it should be resonating as long as it is. And then I do mix it up intuitively based on maybe what bowl seems to be, for lack of a better description, calling me to play it, or wants to sing a little bit. And that's how I have been taught to do it. But it's really all about not getting too much, I believe, in your head, and really just playing more from a heart sort of space. Of course, when I say 60 to 70% of the time my eyes are closed, of course, throughout, though, I am opening and checking in on what's happening in the room, because I need to be aware of if people are okay. I need to be aware of if they're having emotional releases. I need to be aware that there's not something really detrimental that might be happening in a room, because there are some adverse contraindications for sound baths. So people with epilepsy,
Okay.
it can cause sometimes an epileptic seizure. So you need to be aware of that. If you see someone having a seizure, that's definitely something where you need to stop and take care of what's happening in the room. Um, and also sometimes people with PTSD, like veterans, sometimes the metal bowls can cause a little bit of a flashback or a trauma. So I need to pay attention to what's going on in the room to make sure I can facilitate the best experience for everybody. One time when I first started, I was doing a sound bath, and I'm in the bowl. So the bowls I typically have set up around me in sort of like a semicircle. So
Hmm.
I'm playing like that. And my eyes were closed. But then when I opened it up, there was a woman on the side of the room, and she was laying down, but she had her hands over her ears. So that meant that for her, it was too loud.
Right.
No one else had that, but for her, it was a little bit too loud. So that told me I better tone back or pull back on the type of the volume. And after I did that, about 30 seconds, a minute later, her hands did leave her ears, went to her side. And afterwards, she said to me, that was an amazing experience. But if I wasn't aware of that, it would have been a very unpleasant experience for her. She might not have been able to stay the whole time.
True.
If it was just too loud for the entire time, then it wouldn't have been good. So I do recommend to people, don't keep your eyes closed the whole time. Check in on what's happening outside in the group, because as the facilitator of a sound meditation or a sound bath or an experience, it's about them. It's not
Yeah.
about me.
True. I know we do get lost sometimes in
Yeah.
that mode, in that sound, in that zen. But yes, we do need to come back and say, "Hey, I need to keep an eye on them." Yeah,
Right.
it does happen to me too. Like I'm like, "Oh, this is beautiful. I'm gonna get lost," but I have to pick myself back. I'm like, "Nope, open your eyes, keep an
Right.
eye."
Yeah, because
Okay.
like you just said, we can get lost in if I wasn't really paying attention, I could be playing with those bowls for hours and go way over what the
Yeah,
class,
I
was
know.
supposed to be.
That is, yeah, that's something we need to watch out for. Definitely, yeah. Thank you for sharing that intuitive way how you play the bowls. That is very informative. Thank you. And is there anything that you would like people to know more about the sound sessions or the sound baths or anything in particular that you do?
No, I honestly, I would just encourage people that if they haven't really looked into it, to really just give it a try. I don't want to put any preconceived ideas in people's minds of what they should expect, or what might happen for them, or what it can really do, because then they come and they're expecting some sort of experience, because sometimes people come all the time and afterwards they're like, oh my god, that was crazy. I was seeing colors, and I was having all these feelings come up. But I don't want to say anything like that, because then if I say, oh yeah, you come and you're going to feel very peaceful and you're going to have a wonderful experience, I can block the experience for unfolding for somebody in the way it should. And also, I would recommend, though, that here's one thing to be aware of if you do go to a sound bath. Even though the majority of people typically do have some sort of a pleasant experience from them, there are some times where people do not. There are
Yes.
some times where people are getting restless or emotional, or they feel like, I don't know if I can stay here. And just know that if you breathe through that, it will pass. A lot of times people get restless because when you're playing the singing bowls and all this sounds and energy is going out into the room and the space, what is restlessness? It's nothing more than an excitation of energy. And so as they're there and all this energy is being built up, they're empathically picking up all this energy, and now their body is beginning to feel more energized and more restless. So if that begins to happen, just breathe through it. Just try to breathe a couple times, maybe a minute or two, and I promise you it will probably subside and pass after your body acclimates. But the other thing is, if there's a bowl that's played and I strike one bowl and then I strike another bowl and they're like, "Oh, it's so pleasant. I like these sounds." And then I hit another bowl and the person who's attending says to themselves, "Ooh, I don't like that sound. I wish it would stop playing that sound."
Right.
That's actually has nothing to do with the bowls at all.
Right.
Because no matter if I had like 12 bowls here and I played each and every bowl energetically is actually neutral. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not pleasant, it's not unpleasant. We apply. I like that one. Oh, I don't like that one. This is a pleasant sounding bowl. That one's not a pleasant sounding bowl. So if we begin to apply, oh, I don't like that bowl, that's unpleasant, that should be a moment for the attendee to say to themselves first, oh, wait a minute, take a pause. Why am I saying I don't like that? What is it bringing up in me? Is it attached to a memory of some past experience? Is it attached to an emotion? Is it bringing up an emotion? Is it bringing up a memory of a trauma? Like,
Right.
what's going on? Why am I saying that sound? I dislike it. And if we do that and we take a slight pause for a moment and we become introspective and go on a little bit of a self discovery journey, we might actually begin to see what's arising for us to heal. And so then we have the ability to then, transcend that and work through that and process that. It doesn't mean you need to stoically push yourself through an unpleasant experience, but would recommend to people that if you haven't gone to a sound bath before and you do go and you have one bowl or something that you're just saying, "Oh, I don't like that sound." Just take a moment to really ask yourself why.
That you bring up a great point, Anthony, because I did have that experience 2 years ago when I went for a sound bath. I wasn't comfortable with this one bowl. I was very restless. I was talking to myself, what's happening? Why is this doing this? I was okay with the other ones. What's new or what's different with this? Now it all makes sense because it was probably that one particular chakra that I didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, there
or
was
that
something in
particular
there maybe.
emotion, maybe it's related to something I'm struggling with, or I'm
Yeah.
trying to be there but not having that spirit to go there yet. So that's like it's a very restless phase, or that moment where I'm like, I want to be here but I just want to pick up and leave.
Right.
That's how it feels. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna go. But yeah, breathing I think helps. I don't
Yes.
remember what I did, but I just sat through it. uh, but yeah, just being aware of the emotions, the
Yeah.
feelings that are
Yeah, and the other
coming
thing
up.
is, there's sometimes people who come to a sound bath and the singing bowls start and a minute or two into it, they just start crying. And that's an experience that can happen too, and that's a good thing. So I hope people are aware of that. Like if you go and you all of a sudden you start like having this emotional experience, that's a release. That's a
Release. Yep.
release of an energy.
Yep.
And just as I mentioned in science, sound waves can move through the body and break up a gallstone so that it could be released out of the body. When the singing bowls are moving through a body, it can begin to push out an emotion. And maybe the way that the emotion is released is literally through tears. So
Yep.
it's a very good thing if something like that happens. Sometimes we can go to a sound bath and we start coughing and we're like, oh, why am I coughing? What do I need? I need some water. It might have been a release through the throat chakra. There might have been something that had to be expelled through that, and the cough was the way to let that out. So there are things that can happen, but they're all good. They're
Yes.
purposeful.
Yeah, I think any discomfort is a good thing. That's how I'm looking at it, at just my experience of it, because I've had one client, she started crying and I'm like, oh my gosh, didn't she not like the chanting? But then later on she told me that was a nice good release, I just
Yeah.
had to get it out of my system. And she would come every week just to experience it, but every week unfolds something different. You may
Yes.
not cry the next week, you may be okay. It's just that it could be the same particular bowl or the same chant. It acts differently based on what's needed for you.
Yes, that is spot on. That is perfectly said, well said, and right. And people, the thing is, people have an experience one time in a sound bath, and they do think they'll come again and have that exact same experience. But no, it doesn't work that way. It depends on what you're coming in with. It depends on what, needs the healing or needs the work and all these sort of things. So, meditation, sound therapy, all this stuff is something that affects our inner world. And our inner world is constantly changing, just like the outer world is. So we're not always coming to each event in the same way we were, previously.
That's very true. Yeah, it's just that we keep nurturing, we keep tending to this garden inside. It just is changing every minute based on
Yes.
how much you nurture, how much you be aware of what's happening within. So, it's going to unfold beautifully as you experience or be more open to more of these experiences, I feel. So, thank you so much for your time today,
No,
Anthony. It
thank
was
you.
beautiful. I am really grateful that you're here and you shared your wisdom both from the scientific and the spiritual aspects of sound. This is really profound. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I can't thank you enough. Thank you again for inviting me to have this conversation with you. And I appreciate you for sharing this and wisdom and knowledge and getting this out there so more people can know that maybe this can benefit them in some way. So thank you so much, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks for tuning in. Take a deep breath, carry the peace with you, and I will see you next time.